Constitutional history of Bahrain. Introduction. The Kingdom of Bahrain covers 36 Persian Gulf islands off the east coast of Saudi Arabia. These islands make up only 760 square kilometers, but Bahrain is one of the most densely populated nations in the world. This ancient island paradise and trading center is home to over 1.2 million people, mostly Shi'a Muslim Arabs, though there is a powerful Sunni Muslim Arab minority. While the capital of Manama has a population of only 163,000 people, 89% of the Bahraini people live in urban centers situated throughout the islands. Political and historical developments. Like many of its neighboring Middle Eastern countries, Bahrain was ruled by a series of conquering nations, including the Assyrians, the Babylonians, and the Greeks. The Persians took control of the country in the 4th century AD, and their rule lasted until the Portuguese invaded in 1515. While the Persians were able to regain their control of Bahrain in 1602, the Ul Khalifa family of the Sunni Bani Akbar tribe rose up in 1783 and Sheikh Ahmed al-Fatih became the first of the Ul Khalifa rulers. This family continues to rule Bahrain to this day. Regional struggles led the Ul Khalifa to sign a protectorate treaty with Great Britain in 1820. After oil was discovered in the region in the 1930s, the British moved their main military base to the islands, a relationship that lasted until 1968 when Britain decided to end its protectorate agreements in the Persian Gulf. After a failed attempt to create a union of Arab Emirates, Bahrain was forced to declare independence on the 15th of August 1971. The first constitution of the now independent state of Bahrain was promulgated in 1973. It created an advisory legislative body, the National Assembly, and a 14 royally appointed cabinet of ministers. But the Emir disbanded the National Assembly in 1975 when it attempted to end the Ul Khalifa rule. The Emir removed all of the sections dealing with legislative power from the constitution and continued to rule mainly unchallenged. The Iranian Revolution of 1979, however, changed the social dynamic in Bahrain. The Shi'a majority was empowered and encouraged by Ayatollah Khomeini's Iran, while the fall of the Shah greatly weakened the Sunni cultural and religious authority throughout the Middle East. The Shi'a community began to agitate for more democratic representation over growing frustration with Sunni political dominance. After a series of violent clashes, the government responded by changing the cabinet for the first time in 20 years. In 1995, the Consultative Council, created to advise and, in special circumstances, draft legislation, was expanded from 30 to 40 members. These efforts proved too little, as a series of bombings in the following year resulted in several fatalities. The government resulted with over 1,000 arrests, detaining political opponents and people connected to the violence. This tense situation continued until Sheikh Hamad bin Isa al Khalifa replaced his father Sheikh Isa bin Hamad al Khalifa in 1999. The new ruler constituted a committee during his first year in order to transform Bahrain into a constitutional monarchy. In the first national vote since the 1970s, the public overwhelmingly voted in favor of the referendum instituting the resulting National Action Charter in February 2001. The Sheikh also released all political prisoners and detainees. On the 14th of February 2002, Sheikh Hamad officially proclaimed Bahrain a constitutional monarchy, with himself as king. 2002 Constitution. The 2002 Constitution of the Kingdom of Bahrain recognizes the country's Islamic faith by placing Islamic Sharia law as its principal source for legislation. It also affirms that the goal of the state is to advance the interests of the larger Islamic community, but it also guarantees freedom of religion, expression, and the press. It creates a government with powers divided among the king, the prime minister, the council of ministers, a bicameral national assembly, and a constitutional court. Executive branch. The king maintains broad powers under the constitution. The monarchy is hereditary, passed from father to eldest son. As the head of state, it is the king's duty to uphold the constitution and the sovereignty of Bahrain, to award honors and decorations, to grant pardons, and to appoint and dismiss the prime minister, ministers, judges, civil and military officials, ambassadors, and the consultative council. He also acts as the commander-in-chief of the armed forces. However, the king's most important powers are his legislative powers. He has the ability to ratify constitutional amendments, propose legislation, and veto laws. His veto of a law can only be overcome by a majority vote of the legislature. He also has the ability to declare war and a state of emergency, as well as the power to conclude treaties. The king is assisted in his duties by a council of ministers chaired by the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister is appointed by the king, and the ministers are appointed by the king on advice from the Prime Minister. It is the duty of the council to supervise the activities of the government agencies and to implement national policy. Removal of the ministers and the Prime Minister is conducted by the king, though if the Prime Minister is removed or resigns, the entire council is considered resigned as well. Legislative branch. The National Assembly of Bahrain is divided between the Consultative Council and the Chamber of Deputies. The council is composed of 40 royally appointed members who serve for 4 years, subject to reappointment. The chamber likewise has 40 members who serve 4-year terms, but its members are elected by a direct vote. When the new constitution was proposed, the king gained support for the 2001 referendum from the Shi'a majority leaders by promising that the appointed Consultative Council would have only advisory powers. But when the actual governing document was released in 2002, both houses had legislative powers. In order for a bill to become a law, it has to be approved by both the council and the chamber and ratified by the king. However, the chamber does possess some specific powers, including the power of interpellation and the passage of a vote of no confidence against any minister or the council of ministers as a whole. The chamber may not pass a vote of no confidence against the Prime Minister directly. If 2/3 of its members believe that they cannot work with the Prime Minister, then it is put to a vote in the entire National Assembly, and if they decide by a 2/3 vote that they cannot work with the Prime Minister, then the matter is submitted to the king, who must decide whether to replace the Prime Minister or the Chamber of Deputies. Judicial branch. The judicial power of Bahrain is divided among a number of lower courts created by law, including military, civil, and religious courts using Islamic law. This system is regulated and overseen by a higher judicial council, chaired by the king, which is tasked with ensuring the functioning of the courts and the public prosecution office. The highest appellate court is the High Civil Appeals Court, though the constitution does provide for a constitutional court as well. The constitutional court is comprised of a president and 6 other members appointed by the king on the recommendation of the higher judicial council. It is their task to make sure that all laws are constitutional as requested by government, the Consultative Council, or the Chamber of Deputies. The king may also ask the court to review a law before it is passed. Members of the court cannot be dismissed. Political challenges. Bahrain continues to face popular demands for increased democratization, which has manifested itself in protests and uprisings around the country. Due to the king's reneging on his promise to keep the appointed Consultative Council in an advisory position, many Shi'a Muslims boycotted the first elections held under the constitution in 2002. While they participated in the 2006 and 2010 elections, resulting in a win for the largest Shi'a political society, al-Wifaq, the Shi'a population continues to demand increased powers for the elected Chamber of Deputies and more representation in the government. Bahrain was caught in the tide of the so-called Arab Spring of 2011, in which several countries in the Middle East and North Africa saw a rise in popular protests. That same year, Shi'a protesters in Bahrain began a popular movement demanding a new constitution, a release of political prisoners, and an end to discriminatory policies favoring Sunnis in education, healthcare, and the government, as well as the creation of a regulatory body that could investigate corruption. Some called for the end of the monarchy entirely, in favor of a completely elected government. The government responded in an effort to disband the protests, including the use of tear gas and rubber bullets. After government forces opened fire on a crowd of mourners at the funeral of a protester, al-Wifaq withdrew from the National Assembly. Tensions further increased when protesters took control of the Pearl Roundabout in the capital, prompting government forces to send security forces to retake the area. The king eventually was forced to release some political prisoners and fire some government officials, but protests continued in dissatisfaction over this response. Despite a dialogue between the opposition and Crown Prince Salman bin Hamad Al Khalifa, negotiations have stalled and the king called in troops from the Gulf Cooperation Council and declared a state of emergency. System of government under 2002 Constitution. 1515 Portuguese invade the islands of Bahrain. 1602 Persians oust Portuguese to take over Bahrain. 1783 Al Khalifa family takes control of the country from the occupying Persians. 1820 Al Khalifa signs Protectorate Treaty with the British. 1931 Oil discovered in Bahrain. British move their main regional naval base to the islands. 1968 Britain ends its protectorate over the Persian Gulf states. Bahrain attempts to form a union of Arab Emirates. The 15th of August 1971 Bahrain declares independence. 1972 elections held for a constituent assembly. 1973 First Constitution promulgated. 1975 Emir disbands the National Assembly when they attempt to remove him from power and get rid of American naval bases on the islands. 1979 Iranian Revolution energizes the Shi'a majority. 1981 Islamic Front for the Liberation of Bahrain stages unsuccessful coup. 1991 Bahrain participates in US-led coalition's Operation Desert Storm after Iraq invades Kuwait. 1992 30-member consultative council appointed by the Emir. 1995 Emir changes the government in response to growing popular discontent from the Shi'a community. 1996 A series of bombings on restaurants and hotels in the capital results in over 1,000 government arrests. 1999 Sheikh Hamad bin Isa al Khalifa replaces his father Sheikh Isa bin Hamad al Khalifa, establishes a committee to create a constitutional monarchy. 2000 Emir appoints non-Muslims and women to the Consultative Council for the first time. February 2001 National referendum votes in overwhelming favor of the new constitution, the National Action Charter. Sheikh releases all political prisoners. The 14th of February 2002 Sheikh Hamad officially proclaims Bahraini constitutional monarchy with himself as king. For main Shi'a political groups boycott the election, calling for increased powers for the elected house of the new legislature. 2005 popular protests demanding a fully elected legislature. 2006 second set of elections under the 2002 constitution results in a victory for the Shi'a party al-Wifaq, women allowed to participate for the first time. 2011 popular protests by Shi'a majority calling for increased democratic representation, an end to discrimination in favor of Sunnis, the release of political prisoners, and the creation of an anti-corruption watchdog agency lead to government suppression and the declaration of a state of emergency.